The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has Europe on edge. While European nations are trying to unite against Russia to the last Ukrainian, U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to withdraw from NATO. He has accused European allies of being parasites, wants peace in Ukraine, and is ready to reach a deal with Russian President Vladimir Putin, with or without Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Mr. Putin responded by saying yes, but with thorny, impossible demands. And then Mr. Putin convinced Mr. Trump that the trouble was on Ukraine's side. That pushed Zelensky deeper into the arms of Europe. And while Europe is focused 100% on Russia, Mr. Trump has realigned his military and is focusing on what the U.S. sees as a bigger threat, China. And no, I'm not talking about the big trade war that people are arguing about. I'm talking about a real war, a war with planes, warships, and missiles that could disrupt the world order and drag every other country into this vortex. Why might China and the U.S. move towards direct confrontation? And what are China and the U.S. doing to prepare for that war? The media is so full of the Russia-Ukraine conflict that you may have missed this information. In February 2025, the Trump administration quietly ramped up military deployments and exercises around China. Starting with its ally, South Korea, the U.S. Navy deployed the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson to a key naval base in the southeastern city of Busan. They immediately began conducting joint exercises with a very simple purpose: to strengthen the connection between U.S. and South Korean forces and prepare for a nuclear confrontation with North Korea. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un is still strongly supported by his allies China and Russia. The South Korean and U.S. navies have focused on enhancing their combat capabilities and maritime coordination capabilities in the face of North Korea's increasing missile and nuclear threats. In addition, they are enhancing their long-term and robust extended deterrence capabilities by continuously deploying U.S. strategic assets. While the aircraft carrier conducted exercises at sea, the U.S. Air Force deployed B-1B long-range strategic bombers to conduct exercises with the South Korean Air Force. Once the air and naval forces were secured, they began firing on the ground. These cool, lifelike exercises took place near Pyeongchang, just 40 kilometers from North Korea. In March, the U.S. stepped up the intensity of its deployment as the annual White Leaf Freedom Exercise faded in South Korea. First, it was with a massive show of air power. F-15 jets simulated throwing democracy fruit. Then tanks and infantry fighting vehicles tore through the landscape. With the show of force in the Northeast complete, the U.S. turned its attention to an area all too familiar to us, the South China Sea. The quiet, peaceful beaches of Thailand were suddenly shaken. The U.S., South Korean, and Thai militaries conducted large-scale amphibious assault exercises called Cobra Gold. U.S. and South Korean special forces stormed the beach, followed by tank and paratrooper landings. Then fighter jets tore through the sky. The exercise took place in the Gulf of Thailand, west of the South China Sea. At least 8,000 troops from the United States, South Korea, Singapore, and Thailand took part. From the U.S. perspective, we are training a wide range of techniques, tactics, and procedures. Not just normal amphibious landings, but also in unique environments like Thailand, specifically the jungle. This area with beautiful beaches and the ocean, and we are also training in jungle survival and communications techniques. While threatening to leave NATO, the Trump administration appears to be recommitting to Asia, as Washington's relationship with Beijing remains good. Trump said, "I have a great relationship with President Xi Jinping. I have a great relationship with China. We want them to come and invest. I see a lot of articles saying we don't want China in this country. That's not true. We want them to invest in America. That's good. A lot of money will come into America and we will invest in China. We're going to do a lot of things with China. We're going to have a great relationship with China." A day after praising Xi, President Trump imposed an additional 10% tariff on Chinese goods, bringing the total tariff to 20%. Beijing responded by imposing tariffs on U.S. agricultural products. When asked about support for Taiwan, this is what Mr. Trump said. The U.S. State Department later changed its website, removing the line that said the U.S. did not support Taiwan independence. Mr. Trump is clearly playing a game with China. He may say one thing, but his actions reveal another. And now the White House has pledged to speed up the delivery of hot goods to Taiwan, including F-16 jets, anti-tank missiles, and coastal defense systems. This made China furious because Beijing made 2 consecutive threats to take back Taiwan. First, Foreign Minister Wang Yi declared that China would never allow Taiwan to gain independence. Then it was the turn of the Minister of National Defense. Sooner or later, we will take back Taiwan. The fact is, the Taiwan issue is purely China's internal affair and does not require any outside interference. A few hot American-made products cannot change the tragic fate of Taiwan independence. What is Beijing doing behind the scenes? Xi has ordered the military to modernize and prepare for conflict. China's military is growing at an astonishing rate. Every 4 years, it deploys a new force equivalent to the entire British Navy. China's strategy remains clear: to pressure Taiwan with numerous incursions and air and sea blockades. In 2025, Taiwan detected more than 5,000 Chinese jets entering the island's air defense identification zone. Taiwan responded by mobilizing air defense systems and dispatching fighter jets. These small but repeated tactics are weakening Taiwan's military and increasing its operating costs. China's strategy is simply to buy time and continue tightening its purse strings. As for the U.S., the names South Korea, Thailand, Singapore, and Taiwan are all part of a familiar pattern that the U.S. has been building since the Cold War to contain China. Island chain strategy. Both sides are preparing for a direct confrontation. The question is whether a war between the world's 2 leading powers will actually happen. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the United States has considered itself the legitimate and long-term global hegemon. However, they also see the heat of competition looming close behind and are willing to use whatever means necessary and accept great risks to prevent the rise of a rival power. The US and China are at risk of falling into the 2CD trap. That is, when a rising power threatens to replace an existing power as a regional or international hegemon, conflict is inevitable. So what does the world look like today? After 3 decades of unipolarity with unchallenged US hegemony, the world order is changing. The world today has been described as emerging multipolarity. History has shown that multipolarity is often destabilizing because it creates an insecure, unpredictable, and competitive international environment. The most recent example was in 1914, when European powers fought for international dominance, which eventually led to the outbreak of World War I. As world powers competed to expand their imperial ambitions, they sought to contain one another by forming alliances and initiating a commodity race. A disturbing similarity emerged. The United States, an insecure hegemon whose relative power is declining as other powers around the world rise, is actively seeking to weaken and contain its rivals. America's focus on expanding the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, eastward has been a factor in some of the Ukrainian conflicts. But more worryingly, under Joe Biden, Washington has been actively seeking to apply that model to East Asia to counter China in the form of the Quad grouping of the United States, Japan, India, Australia, and the Australian, British, and American military bloc. In theory, these alliances are meant to provide deterrence and demonstrate American power. But history shows that such behavior only fuels conflict, not prevents it. Because when one country tries to arm itself with weapons aimed at another, the other country responds, creating a cycle of escalation. And when a country finds itself facing military containment or a possible preemptive strike, its only option is to strike first. The lesson of World War I is clear when Austria and Hungary, allies of Germany, declared war on Serbia. Berlin believed that confrontation with France, an ally of Russia, was inevitable, so it decided to strike first through the United States. What does that have to do with today? It is too early to judge Trump's strategy toward China. Right now, a direct confrontation between the US and China seems unlikely, but so have many past wars. As the US continues to escalate tensions with Beijing, a flashpoint or miscalculation becomes increasingly likely, and that is where the danger lurks. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Now bye, and see you again.